Before we get started with the next panel, I just had some late-breaking connection here. Teddy Ruxpin up here, Mr. George Wilkins, wrote all of his music. How cool is that? So I just had to share that with you. I was totally excited. I'm running up there and telling everybody. But now on with the show.
Thank you, Todd. I think George said he wrote 220 songs for those cassette player things. Isn't that nuts? So up next, to me, this is a real treat because not only are we going to have Tammy Tuckey back up here again because she has a wonderful relationship with our next guest, but I think we have with us in the room a man who really defined what Imagineering was in the 1990s with his work at Disney MGM Studios and then at Magic Kingdom and eventually, which we won't be able to talk to here, even in Paris. He's done some of the funniest, most heartfelt, most exciting, terrifying attractions that probably any of us in this room have ever experienced. So please welcome to the stage Mr. Jerry Rees and Miss Tammy Tuckey.
I do have a mic.
That's right, you're wired.
I have a magic.
The fancy way.
I flail so much that they gave me a lav mic.
We always, I'm not allowed to talk with my hands because I just the same way.
I only talk with my hands.
All right, that's perfect. So, my job today, I'm like the timekeeper. These guys have such a wonderful relationship. I'm going to let them, for the most part, talk, and I'm just going to stay out of the way, like a good host, when you have two good guests, it's like you stay out of the way, you set them up to do what they do, and you let them go. But they're going to talk about some of the wonderful attractions that Jerry has worked on over the years. And one of the things I love about these guys is you can give them a topic, and I could listen to them talk about any one of the single attractions that we are going to talk about for an hour and a half solid, and you guys would be riveted. But we got 42 minutes and 51 seconds.
And there's 22 shows.
Yeah, so we could do an entire weekend just of Jerry. So we're going to start kind of where he started. Oh, you got no mic here. You're going to take this one.
Oh, well then. Okay, so we're started. Sorry.
No, that's all right. And when this one comes on?
It will come on. Well, okay, so we'll start with Back to Neverland.
Yes.
That is the quintessential project and the first project that you worked for Disney, and that's actually how we both met because I had so many questions about working with Walter Cronkite and
right.
Robin Williams about this project. So this was my first episode of my podcast was with Jerry. So
that's true.
We've talked many different things about this, but let's talk about the beginning of developing the project because it seemed like this was a project that was in trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
Give them the 10,000-foot view of what the attraction was too, because some of us probably remember going to Disney MGM when it opened and seeing this, but some of these folks haven't. So.
Right. So you went into what was going to be a working animation studio. And right up front, you'd see a film that told you how Disney animation was done and what made it special. And then as you'd go through the tour, after you saw the film, you'd see people sort of on display through the glass actually doing the processes to make an animated feature. So the idea was to set it up and pay it off with that kind of tour, and then they would actually make projects, their feature projects there. So that was the idea. And actually, on the Wayback Machine, this was the first thing I did for the parks, but I was a Disney feature animator. I was teacher's assistant for year one at CalArts character animation program. So I was in the A113 crowd with Brad Bird and John Musker and John Lasseter, et cetera. So I had already had a career as a Disney feature animator. That's why they called me. So the line producer called me and he said, we've got this show. Disney is contracted to do it. And it's been about 9 or 10 months, and we're working on it, and we feel like the wind is kind of going out of the sails. And even Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, two of Walt's 9 Old Men, had come over and taken a look at it, and they said, we really feel like the wind's going out of the sails, and we'd like to just get your take on it. So Mark Kirkland was the line producer. And so I went over just to give them my 2 cents. There was no job offer. I had just finished something big. I was exhaling between projects. So I went over and took a look, and they had a Siskel and Ebert version of the film where they talked about how many drawings per second, and if you stack them end to end, they'd go to the moon and all of that kind of stuff. They had a Carol Burnett and Donald Duck version, which was very clever too. But I took a look at it and I just said, well, frankly, none of this gets to the essence of what makes Disney animation special. You know, any studio can brag about the number of drawings and the processes that go on. What makes Disney special? And you know, I had been tutored by Eric Larson in particular, one of Walt's 9 Old Men, and he had imprinted on us that it was about story, character, and emotion. And frankly, every department is the story department. So you don't pick a color because it's a pretty color. What does that color say about the character's emotional state right now? Furniture in the room, the outfits that the character's wearing, every department is the story department. And so I said, you could think of it this way, it's not how you move the drawings, it's how the drawings move the audience. And this has to get at the essence of that. So if I were you, I would take somebody like Robin Williams, and I would step by step let him turn into an animated character, go into the film, and let him feel all that happen. Feel the color change and change his mood, etc. So they said, well, let's meet again in the morning. So I went in the morning, and they said, well, we've been thinking about it, and we're actually going to make a call right now. So the producer gave a call to the studio and said, you know what we've been working on the last 9 or 10 months? We think we're going to stop it all. And I hear screaming on the phone. And then they said, well, don't worry, this guy Jerry came by. And, who the hell is Jerry? So said, well, he used to be a Disney feature animator and stuff. So they finally just said, okay, you've got 4 weeks to show something to Peter Schneider, and then if it survives that, you've got another 2 weeks to show to Katzenberg. And I said, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I just came by to give you my opinion. And they said, oh, you have to direct it. So I just was shoved into the director's chair, and the only real battle I had, other than, you know, I mean, what a welcome thing to just be given the gift of doing that job. But I did have to fight for Robin, because Jeffrey and some of the other people at the studio thought that he was crotch-grabbing adult comic with substance abuse problems, like Fine for Good Morning Vietnam or something, but should go nowhere near Disney animation. So my argument was Pinocchio a wonderful Disney feature? The answer, yes. Well, what about Jiminy Cricket? What do you think of him? Loved him. So I said, well, you know, Cliff Edwards, who played Jiminy Cricket, he had a vaudeville act as Ukulele Ike, and he would do Work Blue. You could buy dirty records that were done by Ukulele Ike, and he was voicing Jiminy Cricket, and sadly, he died an alcoholic. So I said, look, you know, Walt saw the magic in that man for that role and brought out the best of him. And even though it was the person that had an edge and had problems, what we remember about him is the warm, wonderful magic of Cliff Edwards. And I said, we can do that with Robin. So crossed his fingers, said, you can do a test. If it fails, at least it's just a short in the park, but nowhere near a feature. So we did our project, and one of the sequences in the project, and Robin was delightful to work with, one of the sequences has him doing metamorphosis with improv, where he's just turning into all these different things.
Well, then
I think
let's
we have
Walter
that.
Cronkite.
And
Let's get past this
let's
for a
do
second, and let's show this clip.
Okay, and then I'll tell you where that led.
Yeah.
What? Like these are my lines? Help, don't eat me, ouch. I thought you said there was a happy ending, Walter. For who? The crocodile? Fine. Help! No, don't eat me, no, please. I hope you choke on me. Help! Hey, Walter, what happened? Now I'm just a voice.
You see, Robin, you provide the voice, and the animator does the rest. He brings you to life on the page. It really amounts to acting on paper. When the drawings are viewed in sequence, they seem to come alive.
Hey, look! I'm a cartoon! Hey, Walt, just how far can you go with this?
You can do anything that he can draw.
Hey, animator, what do you say we have some fun, huh?
Hey, all right. Let's go.
I can be anything. I can be
Just a tiny person.
or make my eyes really big, or maybe have legs that are real long. I can even be you, Walter Cronkite.
Now hold on there.
Can I do this? I'm happy. I'm grumpy. I'm dopey. Or if Walter, buddy. I'm a corporate symbol.
Hold it, no! Are you fellas finished?
I always wanted to do that.
And I think Robin did always want to do that. He was so delighted when he was flipping the animator scenes. But soon after that, John Musker and Ron Clemens saw the metamorphosis sequence here with Robin, and it clicked, like he could be the genie. So Aladdin was next up for him.
Yeah.
So,
and that gag was one of the funniest things at Disney MGM, is when the "I'm a corporate symbol" thing.
and you know what?
Yes.
Despite all of Robin's improvisation, that was a written line. And one of my storyboard artists, Steve Moore, came up with that and pinned it up, and I went, that's good. So Robin, I was taking Robin through all the boards, and he had like an entourage of people after him. Oh my God, all the agents and stuff, and Katzenberg and everybody. And so, but Robin really focused with me. I was showing him through the boards, and then when he saw that, he busted a gut. And all the heads turned to see, what is Robin laughing at? And I think that's the only reason I got away with leaving it in the film, because Katzenberg, I kept waiting for Katzenberg to tell me, Jerry, that's out. But since it made Robin laugh, I think that was why they left it in. So.
You have some really great behind-the-scenes pictures that we're showing here. So this is you with Robin.
Right, teaching him the principles of flight, because he had to fly at one point. And oh yeah, that was such a wonderful moment. I went and recorded with him up north before doing the live action part, because I needed to get the animators going on the animation first. So I had recorded with him, including all the improv stuff up north, started the animators working, came down and was recording then shooting the live action. And I just arranged a time when I knew we'd be moving from one sound stage to another for him to meet personally with the animators and let them just show him their work and everything. And so I went and was set up, and these pictures were taken by somebody else. I gave them their alone time. And Bruce Smith, by the way, was our directing animator. I was happy to have him. All my staff, like the people in the film, worked on the film.
He's in charge of the Proud Family, which has now come back on the Disney Channel.
Right. So when he sat at the desk, he earned the right. That was, he was my directing animator on that project. But Robin came and found me afterwards, and he just said, "Oh, I was so flattened by that. They were such talented people," and he was so moved, and he had tears in his eyes, and so he just so connected with it. To him, it was not just a gig or a job. He loved the message of it, and he always put his heart in his stuff. And I've always loved that. Every time I work on a project for Disney, invariably, if you collect the right people around you, there's some sort of heart that comes through in almost everything. And he definitely contributed a lot of heart to it. So, but it was great to give him that private time with the animators.
And then, yeah, we have some. The sets are amazing. Look how big the.
I was
the
a hero
books
to
are
my
with you.
parents by introducing them to Walter Cronkite, by the way.
I'm sure they were thrilled. Yes, but the sets are amazing. But you have a story about Walter and Robin kind of hiding in the set, and you heard something.
Oh yeah. Well, before they met, I pitched the idea to Robin, and he was just talking about how much he respected Walter, and he was so important to history, and he'd give me this whole speech. And then I met Walter in New York, and I met him alone, as it turned out. It was going to be a big group, but it wound up just Walter and me. He was really intrigued by Robin as well. So they had this anticipation of meeting before they even met up on the set. And they had a camaraderie that just worked so great right off the bat. And so I remember they had to hide between the giant books. Those were, back in the day, we weren't doing like a bunch of Photoshop or anything. We built giant books. So I had to have them hide between a couple of the giant books and wait for my cue to walk out. And in the dark, I would just hear them, and it would be like, I couldn't tell what they were saying, but it was, and I was like, what are they talking about? They obviously love each other's company. Then I'd call action, and that would stop, and they'd come out and do their thing. And Walter was such a trooper. Somebody asked him afterwards what it was like to work with Robin, and he said, "Well, I'm never quite sure when the man is finished."
It was really fun to watch them together, because it was, I think if you watch the footage that was used, they visibly enjoyed each other.
They did.
And you could really tell, it really shone through when you were watching that these are two guys that are just having a blast doing this.
The polar opposites.
And they continued to have a relationship after that. I went to New York to record Robin's voice later on to get some extra stuff for the walk-around tour, the little short segments, and he was performing Waiting for Godot at the Lincoln Center, and he had talked about, they had dinner with the Cronkites, and again was just gushing about how much he admired them.
He mentioned, so I texted Jerry, I said,
Yes.
I was looking at Robin's speech at the D23 when he got his Disney Legend Award in 2011, I think, and he ends the whole entire speech saying Walter Cronkite told him a joke saying, I love you in red, I love you in blue, but most of all, I love you in blue. And that was the joke that he told, and I said he remembers Walter after all these years.
Yep,
so
yep.
I had tried to get an interview because I really wanted to reunite them, but that never happened. But just these amazing photos and behind the scenes footage we did find as well too.
And it was also just a wonderful thing about this was working with Corey Burton, who's a wonderful voice actor. Yeah. He did the voice of Captain Hook for me in this, and he was so great, such an artist with his job. He asked me, is the fantasy that Captain Hook came to our time, or that we went back to the time of Captain Hook in the original Disney film? And I said, well, we went back in time. He said, oh, different microphone. So he brought in a case a microphone from that year. Was like, this will make it sound like the original Hans Conried recording.
God.
And
He has
all
a
the engineers
collection.
would gather around him, and he had ribbon mics and condenser mics and everything. Oh, he can get you right
that's
to the year.
Fantastic. And here's more of the big.
And he did all my temp of Robin and Walter voices when I had to mock up the film and show it to the executives. And Eisner thought it was them. Eisner said, when did you get Robin and Walter to do the temp stuff? So I immediately called Corey and said, you fooled him. and then I showed it to Robin and Walter on the set, just to get them oriented. Like, here's the story reel, so you kind of know what it's about. And so it's, of course, both their voices, pretty much, coming out with Corey doing them. And when it stopped, Walter turned to Robin and, why do they need us? But yeah, they were great. And he also did my Peter Pan voice as well. And Don Ernst was in the film and as the sound engineer, and he produced Aladdin. So it's all very...
Wow, look at that. And in case you didn't know, this was not shot at Disney MGM Studios, even though it appeared to be at Disney MGM Studios.
we did a scale model of the tower with the ears behind. And Eisner thought I had gone to Florida to shoot it, and when I showed it at his house.
So cool. And yeah, there they are.
Yeah, there's the
right
tower,
there.
which is actually our tower, which is not quite as big, but it's forced perspective.
Amazing.
And it was so fun. I put a lot of my crew in the film. So there's, when you see the art director sitting at the desk, that's Brian McEntee, who's really that. Rebecca Reese is in there. She was one of the animators. Daryl Rooney, who was standing by the books in one of the pictures. He was one of our key animators as well. So it was just so nice to fold in the real team into it. And
I think we've got a shot here of when. There we go.
There they are. Yep, that's the whole crew.
Yep, and by the way, there was a tip of the hat. I don't know if you have that slide, but from Aladdin.
Oh, we don't, but we should.
It was to our film, and John and Ron just said, you know what? It's like Aladdin wouldn't have been that film without seeing Robin do his thing in your short. So we put a permanent thank you in the film to you and your crew. And so they invited us to the premiere, and I was excited, and I looked for it for the first 5 minutes, and then I forgot all about it and was just caught up in their film. And near the end, when the genie gets his freedom, he makes one of his time warps and comes back, and he's wearing, in one of his warps, the Hawaiian shirt and the goofy hat and the little camera that is exactly what Robin wore in live action at the beginning of this short film. So, little trivia that you can win at a party.
Everybody go back and watch Aladdin now.
Which came first, and what's the little tie-in? So.
Such good
Some
stuff.
more
and a
photos
great-
of the crew.
Great crew. We're still in touch with each other, and they're marvelous people.
So cool. And you got one souvenir.
Aha, yes. The little signed thing, and
I
then
want it. So cute. Oh, here. So Jerry found footage.
Sorry. Well, oh yeah. Oh yes.
this is a little footage. So it was old, crumbly VHS, but it was the moment that he says, "I'm a cartoon," and it's the first time he had been turned into a cartoon, and so I thought it was kind of a significant moment.
Can I throw one thing? We could One quick thing.
Well, if you wanted to go back
One
and do
quick thing.
these.
This is just a thing as you're running through the monitors, you know, and just
Live
as you talk to
action.
different people as you're running through.
Oh no, this is the extra stuff.
Okay,
this is
everybody.
the improv.
We can't be late. Come on, hurry up. Barbara Jean, just grab the baby and run. Oh, no, come on now. Let's keep moving. Keep on going through. No, Nancy and I are going to be here later. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. Please stay in your group. The yellow lines are there for your safety. Please, no rushing. I'm kidding.
All right, super.
And then, and then he came back with, oh, one more thing. No. So, but yeah, he just did a marvelous job. But I do have one that is the moment that he said, everybody look, I'm a cartoon, which I thought was quite awesome.
So cool. And there you
Look
guys
at
are.
Lion.
all
Walter.
together.
Did he keep that costume? It's like a Snuggie.
I don't know, but you know, after this film, Katzenberg called me and said, I just showed Michael Jackson the show and he loved it. Great job, kid. Then he called me and said Steven Spielberg saw the film and he really loved it. And right after that, he cast him in Hook. So I thought, well, there's that. He went to Aladdin and he went to Hook.
That was a twofer.
Yeah.
Yes, I forgot about that.
But yeah, they were just as charming. You know, Walter was just as charming and smart, and you know, the twinkle in his eye, as much as you would hope. He was exactly that.
So we're going to change tone slightly.
Uh-oh.
See?
Oh, no.
All right.
I'm already scared.
One of the funnest, scariest, like, I think it runs you probably through every emotion that you could possibly have in the dark.
It does.
Well,
and
almost every emotion you can have in the dark in 11 minutes, but...
Alien Encounter, yes. Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter, the full name of that.
That's my fault. Okay, I'll take note. I did the slides. That's my fault.
So yeah, I heard there was a lot of. I actually got a 16-year-old got in touch with me. He's now 18, but he's building scale models of the set that he never went to because he was too young. But there is sort of a fan base since it was discontinued, and some people that did see it, and there's legends about it because it went through 2 phases, and so you can tell me what are some of the legends that I can verify or bust, because I have the true story.
Well, you have, like, when it first opened, you have the opening sequence, the pre-show. Originally it was Phil Hartman, and then it was changed to Tim Curry. Were you a part of that change?
Yes.
Like, how did that come about?
Well, I guess I'll just tell you the shape of it. Originally I came in and was doing the media, so it's like everything that you would see and hear in the media I was directing. Came in and did all of that, and then what I was looking forward to was now going into the field and continuing to direct how things would unfold in the space, and to work with Doug Griffith, a great audio animatronics animator, on the SIR or Tom 2000 footage, etc. And but there was a sort of a stampede of people that had been working on it, and they're like, no, thank you, we're going to go do that. Thank you, you're done. I was like, oh, what? So I was so used to going and being part of things all the way to the finish line. So I just finally had to give up and stand back and let it go be whatever it was. I didn't even see it as it was installed. And then Eisner and Marty Sklar and Tom Fitzgerald, a few people called me and went, Jerry, you have to get down there. You have to keep directing it. We shouldn't have taken you off the show. So I got the notice. They asked me if I wanted to work with Rick Rothschild as a producer, and I love working with Rick. We're collaborating even now. But Rick and I went down, and for the first time I saw what they had installed. So that whole first run that people saw, I had not condoned it or anything. I just produced media, and then somebody installed and did a whole bunch of stuff around my media and made whatever that show was. In going down and looking at it, it took Rick and I about a half hour to decide what we would change about it. And it was basically, I heard rumors that, it was too scary, and it's like...
I heard someone had a heart attack.
No, we wanted to make it more scary. We wanted to make it more effective, more adrenaline pumped, better pacing, more scary. So we made notes in about a half hour, because we totally had fresh eyes walking in to see it fresh. And it took us about 6 months to implement those notes, but the notes we made in that half hour we really stuck to those. And bringing Tim Curry in to really kick up that first scene
Creep
was
factor.
something, and I loved Phil. I had worked with Phil. I loved working with him in Brave Little Toaster.
That's
and-
right, yeah. So
yeah.
if you did not know, because we didn't, Jerry actually directed Brave Little Toaster.
Wrote and, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Which I bet a bunch of people in this room grew up on when it ran on the Disney Channel. And I think a common thing that I see with your work is that was one of the most Disney things not done by Disney. And I feel like that's kind of what we see a lot with everything that you've done. There was, as things got into the 80s and the 90s, and it's like, oh, we need to be more edgy and we need to be, like, I feel like that emotional heart of what was Disney is something that you always brought to every project that you worked on.
And I always felt like it could completely coexist with contemporary vibe and with a certain amount of edge and all that stuff. It's like, you don't have to let go of the heart when you do that. But I had loved working with Phil, but bringing Tim Curry in this case, and having him rev up sort of the evangelical preacher about the excess technology was tremendous fun. And Doug Griffith, to this day, said it was one of his favorite pieces of animation to do, and we worked together on his audio animatronic motions for that character. And by the way, I brought another person in from the Brave Little Toaster. Jim Jackman was an actor at the Groundlings, and he did Plugsy. When they get to the city, there's a big, "Hey, welcome, feel free to enter Ollie's." You know, it was Jim Jackman. I had him be the guy that gets eaten. So the guy above your head is actually Plugsy from the Brave Little Toaster.
Oh boy.
But, you know, we then got to go in and time and pace all the physical effects that happen in the space. And, you know, I had paid close attention to how to make you really afraid at that last minute. So we had binaural sound in the seats. We had breath that could breathe on your neck. We had a little tongue lick that could lick the top of your head. So in the point of view of the poor guy that gets eaten, you're sort of trained what this creature does when it's going to take you out. And the first thing it does is it growls at you, but then it comes up and it breathes. So it breathed on his night vision camera. So first you got the foggy. Then you got lickety-lick with the tongue. And then the next thing was chomp. And it ate his head. And then you got hit by splattered with the quote-unquote blood in the dark, which I have a little story about that. So then when you would sit in the dark and it would come up and bump your chair, and every person in the dark thought their chair was the only one the creature was behind, you would feel the breath, and you go, okay, that's the moment that the lens fogged over, and then you'd feel the lickety-lick on top of your head, and you're like, oh no, that's the moment before the chomp, and then we would save you just at the last minute. But Rick and I were sitting in the dark. We would bring test audiences through, and we saw it as this sort of human rejuvenation machine, because it was really in a hot part of summer, and it was just sticky and hot and everything. And we'd go out and recruit test audiences to come take a ride. And so they'd be like droopy, sweaty people going into the front. And then they'd go in, and we'd get them cooled down, and we'd get them revved up, and we'd get their adrenaline pumping, and they'd screaming and laughing, and we would drop not only the blood on them, but we'd hit them with bug bits in the face when the creature would get exploded. Yeah. So they'd go out with a little shower and cool and adrenaline pump, and they would leave like leaping and laughing and talking to each other. We went, hey, we built a human rejuvenation machine. But one day we were sitting and doing amongst the audience doing the test, and two things happened. One was the moment came where the blood was supposed to be deployed on the whole audience. And Rick and I were sitting there, and it didn't hit our part of the audience at all. It just hit the far side of the audience. So our group just heard people over there scream. That was way scarier. So as soon as the lights came up, Rick and I go, that's in. So we always had it hit half the audience, let people scream, and then wonder what it is, and then hit them. So that made it more scary. And also, everybody I cast was a comic, so it was all good comedic talents. So we were harking back to the day that, you know, people would go in the theater and have like the Tingle Theater, where they'd have little electrodes that could spark you and all that stuff. So we were having fun with it.
So, Tammy,
and then another thing that happened that was true was one of the test audiences over, and the lights came up, and there was an empty seat.
Oh.
So the person had evidently like found a way to wriggle out of that thing and had gone out an exit door or something. But Rick and I just look at each other and go, oh, either that or the alien ate that guy. I don't know.
The media part of that was incredibly fabulous, so we should talk about that too. And Tammy, I know you've actually had a chance to talk.
Yes.
And reunite the cast with them. So
the magic of Tammy.
Tell
she
them
lured
who
everyone.
was in it.
So Kathy Najimy and Kevin Pollak were on the podcast. We reunited them with Jerry, and so they came on the show, and they just discussed working with Jerry. Did you want to tell the story what you did to Kevin?
Kathy reminded me. Every morning they had to go through 4.5 hours of makeup to get in the green. And so, yes, first you had to have your head cast, which if you're claustrophobic, that's a problem because there's just straws out your nose and then the rest of your head is covered. And then the stuff sculpted on, and then, the things are made to apply to your head. So about 4.5 hours of makeup in the morning. And so that was, and also
Kevin
it kind of
He
covers your
hated it.
ears. We tried to make little holes for your ears, but it's very uncomfortable when your ears are covered and you're trying to hear your fellow actors. So, but they were real troopers, but it was trying. So Kathy comes up to me afterwards and she goes, "Hey, Jer, I want, she goes, he and I are always pulling pranks on each other. So you could do me a favor. You could go in and tell him that all of it is useless because there was a problem with the camera today. So we have to do it all over again." So, and then in the telling, remember Kevin Pollak was like, "Jerry, who's the most trusted person I've ever met, the most kind-hearted person I've ever met, comes up to me and tells me, I so believed you because you're so genuine." So, he said that I did a great job of convincing him in front of the crew that there was a problem with the camera and we had to film everything again tomorrow. And for the moment, he said he was about ready to strangle me, and then he looked at Kathy smiling behind, and then he went, "To strangle her." So she took great glee, and so he said, "To this day, it's the most trying prank that's ever happened to me." And so he's off filming Miss Maisel now. But
And she just finished Hocus Pocus. So,
yes.
Yep, they say hi.
They do say
We're in
hi.
we're in a text group chat, so they couldn't be here, but they do say hi. So.
But yes, they enjoyed being on your show, and they were trying to be here.
Yeah.
That's fine. So we're going to move forward in the time machine to another. Oh, there it is. I was waiting for
I know
that.
who that is.
Cranium Command. Yes, Cranium Command.
Could you kind of, in a nutshell, explain? Because I think you did such a wonderful job of this. Explain what the show was and what the concept behind it was.
Well, the question it poses is, how can you command your own cranium? How can you pilot yourself when there's all this stuff going on around you? But not only around you, but inside of you. So inside the theater, it lets you experience that in a special way, because you go in and the first thing you notice is you seem to be inside of someone's head. It happened to be an 11-year-old boy's head. And you're looking out through two eyes into his world. So it's continuous footage to show you what's happening out there during the kid's day. And then there's other screens that show you the different parts of the body. So there's Charles Grodin playing the left brain, all logical, and there's John Lovitz playing right brain, who's very creative. And there was Dana Carvey and Kevin Nealon playing the right and left ventricles of the heart. There was George Wendt playing appetite, and Bobcat Goldthwait playing adrenaline glands, which was perfect casting for him.
Yes.
So as they are looking at all this stuff going on through the day, and they argue about what to do, boy. And logic and emotion are arguing, and appetite wants them to finally get a meal because they're running out of energy, etc. So the little pilot who's trying to make sense of all this, Buzzy, is an audio animatronic figure, and he represents sort of the consciousness of this boy. And he has to try to figure out whose opinion to hear. So he's hearing all these disagreements from the different parts of the body, and does he listen to logic? Does he listen to emotion? Does he do a combination? So that little audio animatronic figure in the room is sort of the arbiter of everything that's going on. And if he makes a good choice, things go well. If he makes a terrible choice, things go horribly. And if he really screws up, General Knowledge shows up, who's a character that just gives him a tongue lashing, and Corey Burton again was the wonderful performer who did that. And so the idea is if Buzzy can do a good job and pilot this kid through a day, making good choices, he can become a member of the Cranium Command. So that was the basic idea.
You have some really great behind-the-scenes photos that we're going to see. I don't think anybody's ever seen these before either. So there's Buzzy.
There's little Buzzy and
We found him.
Doug Griffith and Dave Fighton.
Sorry.
Yes. I was so worried for him.
I know.
But yeah, Doug Griffith was again one of the animators on that, and Dave Fighton was the other one. But I brought Daryl Rooney, who had been with me on a couple projects before, to sort of oversee that as it went along. And by the way, the pendulum that would swing in the theater, I don't know how many of you saw it, but there was Buzzy would ride on a pendulum back and forth. And I tried to make it so, when the point of view went right or left, he would swing the counter direction so it would feel like there was centrifugal force and everything going on. Well, that, I had shot all the point of view first, and then I had to build all the interior stuff and shoot it second, timed to the point of view. And then I had to take care of where does Buzzy go? What screens does he look at, et cetera. So I just took my point of view footage and put it on my home TV, and then pointed a video camera at that, and took a little miniature Buzzy and put him on the eraser of a pencil. And while it would play, I just moved him back and forth, and that was the guide for the whole the pendulum movement in the theater. So it was very homegrown. And we did some other things that were sort of homegrown too. We did George Wendt was in the stomach, and he had to be waiting in stomach acid and stuff. So I needed at one point for the level to really rise in there, and they said, oh, you couldn't possibly add that many gallons into his place. When he's finally getting a meal and there's a food fight going on and all the level raises. So they said, we can't gush all that stuff in there that fast. So I came up with an idea. I said, well, what if the whole set is suspended and there's just a pool that has one level underneath of it, and you raise the set and lower it, and it has a perforated floor, and you tie the camera's movement exactly to the set and take it up sound. So the DP goes, prove it. So I run over to the side with my home video camera, and somebody gets a bucket, and we put something on a string, and I did okay, go. And so we took it back to the DP and said, what do you see? And he said, I see water level rising and lowering. We went, aha, we lowered and raised. So we built it. And so there were a lot of things done like that. And we went out and rehearsed the point of view camera with my home video camera and the crew and the actress, Natalie. We went out and just would grab home video tests for how do you make the camera appear shy? Yeah. Concepts like that. Do the thing where the camera operator would sit next to her and would peer over. And if she did a little look at the camera, then look away like it was shy. So, the camera operator had to learn sort of emotional cues for camera work, stuff like that. But we had an absolute blast.
An all-star cast too. So we have the stomach, and then
So I love that you corrected it. So for years, I always assumed it was the stomach, just like everyone else. But when you said no, it's appetite, that completely changed the way that I thought about it. And
it's
so
the
much
sense.
Sense.
Idea of appetite and the energy you need to run through your day. And by the way, in the food fight, through the point of view, I made sure that exactly the same objects fell into the stomach. There was the burger, there was the chicken leg, there was all, and the M&Ms. And so we had giant things. And somewhere I've got the backstage footage of us building all those giant props and stuff. So I'm going to try to get that digitized.
Oh, that would be cool. There's Bobcat.
Bobcat freaking out.
Such cool sets.
And so, I did find some footage recently, but I wondered if there was other stuff you wanted to explore. Oh, like maybe about how the show happened?
Well, yes. Also how that kind of came to be, because that was the Wonders of Life Pavilion is where it kind of had its home, so.
Yes, but it started, the story I told you about Back to Neverland, where it was, we have a project that needs a fresh point of view, and when I gave that point of view, they said, here, do it. Mm-hmm. Well, then they did it with 4 shows. So on the opening day of Disney MGM Studios, I had 4 shows that were all thrown at me like that. So that was the first one, and then it was the editing story with George Lucas, and A Tourist from Hell with Goldie Hawn and Rick Moranis, and Michael and Mickey with Eisner and Mickey Mouse. So I was actually doing post-production on all 4 of those at the same time as we stacked them deeper and deeper. And then on opening day of the Disney MGM Studios, we had a celebration, and Eisner, Katzenberg, and Lucas were standing together, and George Lucas gestures me over, so I go, and he says, I want you to rework the stunt theater because the story flow it's not working for me. And so he had kind of glaringly not fully opened it. It wasn't part of the big celebration that day. It was there, and there were, I think, 2 shows a day, but it didn't have a full schedule.
I remember it was in technical rehearsals.
They were still trying to work things
months,
out.
Yeah.
So I told him, I've never worked amphitheater and worked with live stunt people, et cetera, and he said, it needs storytelling and showmanship, and you know how to do both, go fix it. So that was my mandate. Then Peter Schneider caught me the same night, and he goes, okay, I know you got a full plate, but there's this other show. It's called Cranium Command. The whole crazy theater is built. And by the way, wonderful theater. At the time, it was pretty innovative. It was one-of-a-kind theater. You couldn't put this movie anywhere else. It had not only the 2 audio animatronic figures and multiple screens, it had 10 discrete soundtracks. At the time, that was pretty special, where I could mix 10 discrete places in the room around you. And it had reach out and touch you things like when adrenaline and heart would get worked up, I could have steam actually fly into the room. And so lighting and effects and all kinds of stuff to really, it was almost like all of us were wearing one giant VR goggle. So it's like we were inside of this thing. So, but he said, we've got this show and it has an opening date and we're halfway done. A lot of production has happened and we're firing everybody. And we hate it, but we don't know what's wrong with it. Can you look at it? So, which was the same way that I got the Lucas job. Yeah. Just a sidebar, Katzenberg had called me, hey, Jer, I'm sending over a videotape. It's something we shot with Lucas. We hate it. Tell me what's wrong with it. So I took a look at it, and I told him my opinion. Great, write it tomorrow on Tuesday. Go shoot it on Friday. So it's like, okay. So I did. I actually, by the end of the week, was shooting it with him. So this was another one of those situations where they were used to that. Like, here. Buzzer beater, go for it. Yeah. So it was a start over. So the things that I changed about it was rewrite it so that the messaging is hidden in the entertainment, not just patronizing, and keep the eyes on, because the other people had used the eyes very little. They had just had them dark, and then once in a while they'd turn on and go off. And I went, man, if the message about how to deal with stress, you should keep those eyes on and just like, for most of the time, you're just dealing with it. You're dealing with bullies, you're dealing with whatever. It's just, you can't close your eyes and make it go away. So leave them on. And then the other thing was, it was all expected to be animated, all of it. And I said, well, wouldn't it be fun, instead of animating sort of a Charles Grodin type, just get Charles, and let's do like crazy Terry Gilliam type sets and stuff, and sort of throw expectation on its head. And so they said, okay, go. So it was a conference call with Eisner and Katzenberg and Marty Sklar and Fitzgerald, and I think Roy might have jumped on too, Roy Disney. So they just said go. And then the blessing curse in a lot of these was kind of the same, where the curse was a lot of the schedule was gone and a lot of the resources were gone. But the blessing was, there had been other efforts that didn't go as well with a lot of sort of committee interference and stuff, and they had finally seen that not bear fruit. So they would tend to stand back and sort of let this boutique-sized team have a lot of creative freedom to just go for the finish line. So a lot of that raw energy, really was born in that environment. And Kirk and Gary worked
Kirk
on
Wise,
this show.
Gary
Kirk Wise and
Trousdale.
Gary Trousdale, who one of their very next gigs was directing Beauty and the Beast, right?
But
they
this
were
is the
on
first
my
one.
story team.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that we didn't know at the time, but Cranium Command was actually developed inside the fishbowl at Disney MGM Studios. So
Yes.
if you had wandered in a little bit after opening day.
And that was because of those 2 things they handed me at the same time. Stay here and fix the stunt theater, and retool, rethink what Cranium Command is, and get that on the road. So I had to have my team went, well, we just opened Back to Neverland. Let's set my storyboard team in the storyboard department. So when they go, this is the storyboard department, it's like, let's do that. Let's be boarding there. But we were boarding another show right in front of the public. So anybody who has home videos from that era, you might have pictures of me and Kirk and Gary and Daryl and Rebecca and working on Cranium Command right in front of the public. So I'd shuttle back and forth between the stunt theater and back to that building to work with my team. And just one other thing is, there was 2 sides to being in front of the public like that. Some people shied away from it, but our team got quite used to it and was kind of fond of it. One thing they would get into like they did get their work done, but they would do like shoot rubber bands at the glass sometimes, or they'd hold up a sign that says "Feed the animators, drop the quarter here," and people would clink the quarters against the glass. But then we would see something, and this was really touching. At least once a week, you'd see a kid, a little boy or girl, that would just be looking mesmerized through the glass at our team. And then you'd see the tour move on, so all the legs would move aside, but you'd see the kids stay there. And then you'd see mom and dad come back and like, come on, sweetie. And so we would, if we noticed that, we would say, let's go out and talk to them. So I remember several times like stooping down to talk to the kid and saying like, what's going on? And if they were curious about drawing or becoming an artist or being an animator or working for Disney, whatever, first we would say, you can do that. I used to be your age looking through the glass too, and now I'm helping to make the magic, and you can do this. And then the second part of it was we would talk to the parents and go, by the way, I'm telling the truth. Support them in this because they can do it. I'm not just being patronizing. So we did that, and then cut to years later, a number of people, but one of them, Eric Miller, recently got in touch with me, and he said, I chose this career because I came and saw that film, fell in love with animation, and he started that path, and he actually wound up getting a production management job at Disney and then at DreamWorks, and was involved with several big features and now set up his own studio. And he came and had lunch with me and said, Back to Neverland made me fall in love with all this stuff. And then he came out and saw our group that was, working